Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at game number 14 of the 2024 FIDE World Chess Championship match in Singapore, taking place between Ding Liren from China and Gukesh Dommaraju from India. Now, in this 14th and final game, Ding has the white pieces, Gukesh with the black pieces. Everything is up for grabs. If either player wins this match, they will become the world champion. So let's jump right into the action. Now, Ding, playing with the white pieces, decides to open with this move knight to f3. After knight to f3, we get the move d5, and now we have the move g3. Here Gukesh plays c5, and now we get the move bishop g2. Game continues with knight to c6, and now we get the move d4. Now, thus far, pretty standard stuff by both sides. Perhaps a little bit of a surprise from the standpoint that Gukesh has played d5, c5, and knight c6 versus something maybe a little bit more solid, but nonetheless, this is nothing too out of the ordinary. So now we get the move e6. Here Ding decides to castle. We get pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, and we have the move knight g to e7. Now, this is a very rare setup by Gukesh here, bringing the knight to e7. This is something that you would not expect to see very frequently, mainly because in many of these positions, you bring the knight out to f6 here and develop a little bit more naturally. So we get the move knight g to e7, and now we have the move c4 from Ding. Ding trying to open up this nice long diagonal for the Catalan bishop on g2, and here we get the move knight takes knight. Now we have queen takes knight, and here we get the move knight to c6 being played, and Ding plays the move queen d1. Now here Gukesh spends a little bit of time before playing d4. At this point, I would argue that Ding, for the millionth time in this match, is simply out of preparation at this point, and Gukesh is probably feeling pretty good. So we get the move d4. Here Ding plays the move e3, and now we have the move bishop c5. Now at this point, I would say that it's clear that after we get takes, and knight c3, both players are out of their preparation. At this point, Gukesh once again is up 30 minutes on the clock at this point in the game, and it looks like he has a pretty decent position. Now, that being said, of course, there are some issues for both sides. First of all, from the black standpoint, the bishop on c8 is a very passive piece here. It is not super active. Meanwhile, for white, when you look at this, you have the great Catalan bishop on the diagonal. So a lot of what this position is going to revolve around is who is able to simply activate their b's. So now we get this move castles being played, and here Ding plays the move knight b5. Now Gukesh plays the move bishop b6, and this is the first move that is a little bit inaccurate here. What Gukesh should have played here was this move e5. The computer considers this to be very close to equal after takes b3 and bishop to f5 here, simply because when we get bishop b2, black goes queen d7 here, and now if white were to play queen d2, there's simply bishop to h3, forcing the trade of the light square b's, because if you move to h1, you hang this rook on f1. So in this position, white should play the move rook to e1. Now after rook to e1, if black were to go bishop to h3, you simply play bishop to h1 here, and both of the b's stay alive. So e5 would have been a little bit better. The main line that I'll show you guys is here after rook e1, black should go rook d8, we get queen to d2, and now after rook to f to e8 here, position is pretty balanced. Instead, we get bishop to b6. Now we have the move b3 being played here by Ding, and here we get the move a6. Now this is a very critical moment here. This is a big moment in the game, because when I was covering this game live on my stream, I thought that if Ding played the move queen to e2, Ding is clearly better in this position. Now, I thought that Ding is clearly better in this position because basically when black goes a6, here you play rook to d1, and now after black moves the queen to e7, white drops the juicer back to c3 with the idea of playing bishop to e3 and simply bringing the rook to the center of the board. Now what I think happened here is that Ding probably thought that knight to d4 could be played, and at this point when you move the queen to say d3 for example, he figured after rook to d8, black is putting the rook in the center of the board, you have e5, bishop f5, and everything else, and if anybody is better, perhaps it could be black. Now, that is simply not the case, as you can see from the evaluation bar, because in this position, if white plays a move like queen to e4 here, the pawn on b7 is very weak. You can't really move the bishop without hanging it. You have bishop e3 incoming here. If black ever goes to e5, there's knight to d5, and at this point, white is simply much better. Now, this I think comes back to the match as a whole. I think that Ding, we know he's had a lot of mental issues. He's been struggling a lot. I think that once again in this match, for again the millionth time, not trying to be over the top about this, he for whatever reason completely underestimates his position here, and he thinks that he's simply not better at all, which is why he plays the move b3. So we get b3. Now Gukesh plays a6, and here we get to move knight to c3, and the game continues with bishop d4. Here Ding plays bishop b2, and now we get to move e5. Now at this point, it's pretty clear that when we look at this position, white maybe has a very tiny advantage here, but objectively, the game is trending in the direction of a draw. Now the reason for that is that at some point, white is going to have to move this knight, trade the bishop to the center of the board, and the game should end peacefully. So here we get to move queen to d2. Gukesh plays bishop to e6, and now we get to move knight d5. Here Gukesh plays b5, an excellent move, by the way, because the one advantage that white has in this position is you have this nice bastion with the knight on d5 supported by the pawn or the bishop, and you really want to try and weaken the chain of pawns here. So we get b5 from Gukesh, and now we have the move pawn takes pawn, and this is the first move that comes as a bit of a surprise, both to me, but I would say generally all of us who are covering the game. Now the reason for that is that when you look at this position, what I expected to be played here was the move bishop takes bishop, knight takes, and now the move rook e1, attacking this pawn on e5, and after b takes c4, b takes c4, let's just say queen d6, f4, and f6, takes, for example. It's a very equal position. You have pawns on c4 and e5, which are opposing each other, but objectively with the knights in the center of the board, the position is very balanced. Instead, we get pawn takes pawn. Now we have pawn takes, and here we get the move knight to f4. Now this is very clearly what I would say is a draw offer from Ding Liren here. He's happy to draw the game, get to the tie breaks, and simply move along. So we get knight f4. Now the reason this move is effectively a draw offer is once you play this move, there are going to be massive trades in this position. Bishops are coming off the board, knights are coming off the board, and it's just looking like with limited material, not a whole lot can happen. So we get takes, and now we get the move rook to b8, simply moving the rook and guarding the pawn on b5. Here Ding plays rook f d1, and now we get to move queen b6, and we have the move bishop f3 being played. Now at this point, I already thought the game was going to end in a draw here. I was expecting bishop d7 or bishop d5, mainly because if you get bishop d7 after takes, let's just say rook d8, takes even, followed by queen to c2 here. At this point, with even number of pawns on the board, there's really just not a whole lot going on. We'll probably get a trade of the rooks or the queens. Game should end in a couple of moves. But instead, we get bishop to f3 from Ding. Now we get takes, and we have the move b4. And this is really the critical moment of the game, I would say, where at this point, we're all watching, we're thinking we're on move number 25. The game has been going for all of 1.5 hours. It's going to be a draw. We're going to tie breaks. Now here, inexplicably, Ding plays this horrible move pawn to a4. Now you're probably looking at the evaluation bar here and thinking, well, what's the big deal? Of course, white is no longer better. It's a small advantage for black. But the reason that this move is so bad is you go from a situation where it's effectively a draw with perfect play or a white win with a black blunder to a situation where now it can only be a draw if their game is played perfectly. But if white blunders, white loses. This move, I'm going to say, when I look at games that have been played in recent world championships, I actually would say this move, in my opinion, is one of the worst moves I've seen. I think it is worse than any blunder that we saw in the match between Magus and Nepo, simply because at this point, you have no chance of winning the game. You're going to make the draw, move to the tiebreaks. There's nothing going on whatsoever. And as soon as you play the move a4 here, allowing end peasant with pawn takes pawn, you take back. Material is still balanced, but you have a very weak pawn on b3, which you are going to lose in a couple of moves. And besides that, with a rook and a bishop staying on the board, you have zero chance of ever winning the game. And if you play perfectly, you'll draw. But if you make even the slightest blunder, you are going to lose. So we get rook takes a3, and now we have the move g6 being played, and here Ding goes queen d4. Now we get queen b5, b4 being played, we get the trade, and now we reach this endgame where white is down a pawn. Now it is 3 versus 2 on the same side of the board. I will point out that if you're able to reach some position like this, just to illustrate the point, if you reach a bishop endgame with the 3 versus 2, this is a dead draw. If you're able to reach this endgame with the rooks on the board, this is also a simple draw, just like we had yesterday with the 3 versus 2 on the king side as well. So if you can trade either the set of the rooks or the bishops, this is a draw. However, you cannot force a trade of either of the pieces here, which makes this quite difficult to play. So we get takes, g5 played, bishop d5. Of course, Ding wants to try and trade the bishops, and now we get to move bishop f5. Here Ding plays the move rook to c1, and now we get to move king g7 from Gukesh, and we have the move rook c7 and bishop g6. Now once again, black is only up 1 pawn on the king side here. The game is in the balance, But considering it's the last game of the World Championship match, considering the time situation with Gukesh being up so much time here, as I said before, you're in a situation where if you play perfectly, you can draw. But if you make even one mistake with white, you could very easily lose the game. Now, it's worth pointing out that I mentioned all this during my live stream. I was already very unhappy with this. I was quite upset with the move A4, not so much because I'm rooting for Ding, but more the fact that you put yourself in a spot where there is no upside and there is tremendous downside. Now, maybe Ding thought that he was simply drawing the game easily, but as we're about to see, this is anything but simple. So you get the move rook c4. Of course, Gukesh plays rook b1, and now we get the move king to g2. Here we have the move rook to e1. Of course, Gukesh trying to avoid any trades of the bishops or the rooks in this position, and then slowly start pushing his p on the king side. So here we got this move rook to b4, and now Gukesh goes h5. We get this move rook to a4, and now we get the move rook e5 and bishop f3, and now we have the move king h6. Now for Gukesh here, this is really the dream scenario. If we go back to the start of the game, Gukesh had to have known that he was a little bit worse out of the opening, maybe not much worse, but a little bit worse. And now he knows that with an hour 12 minutes on the clock versus 38 minutes, he is simply Gukesh chilling here. I know it doesn't ring or rhyme as well as some people would like, but nonetheless, he is in the driver's seat. This is the absolute dream. Last game of the match, he has no chance of losing and only chance of winning if his opponent blunders. So now we get the move king to g1, and here Gukesh plays rook e6, and we get the move rook to c4. Now we have g4, bishop d5, rook to d6, and now we get bishop b7. Here Gukesh plays king g5, and Ding plays this move f3. Now this is a very, very important moment, because when f3 was played, I actually thought this game was headed for a very simplistic draw with this move. The reason being that after we get f5 and takes, now we have a situation where it's 2 pawns versus 1 on the king side, but black can't really play f4 or open up anything here. Whereas if we go back a couple of moves, say you play rook c1 and we got some position like this, after takes, rook c1 and f4, now black is pushing the f and the g pawns. You can go rook d2 as well. It's still a draw like all positions in chess, but there is serious danger for white. So we get f3. Now we have f5 from Gukesh, we get takes, and here we have the move rook b4. Gukesh goes bishop f7, and now we get king f2, and we have the move rook d2 check being played. We have king g1, king f6, and now we have the move rook b6, king g5, rook b4, and we have bishop e6. Again, very, very stable position here. Should be a draw, but as you will notice here, Ding is starting to get low on time. He is now down to 16 minutes at this point in the game. He's down a pawn here, and we're going to see if his nerves can hold out. So you got the move rook to a4 played after a 4-minute thing. This is already a spot where I do not like this move. If I were playing this game, I would have played rook b5 and basically just started playing rook b5, rook b4, rook b6, start checking and going for one of these straightforward plans. I will point out that while I was live streaming this, I think I actually played out this exact position with the white side against Stockfish on chess.com, and I was able to draw this position. So it should still be within the balance. But here we got this move rook to a4 being played. And this is a move that is simply already a step in the wrong direction, because now you're putting the rook further on the edge of the board, away from the bishop, and now we get to move rook to b2, and here we get bishop a8. I was about to say king f6, but here we get the move. Now this is the moment where bishop a8 is a move that should not be played, in my opinion. I'll tell you why. There are a lot of sort of these deep ideas in chess where you want to put a bishop on a certain square. When you put the bishop on a8 in this position, the bishop is now on one diagonal. You'll notice that traditionally when you have wooden shields, bishop has access to every single diagonal. But when you put the bishop on a8, now you have put the bishop on one diagonal here. It's one diagonal. It does not target anything, and it's simply like the op that isn't scoping anything at all. So I would have much preferred to see bishop g2 or bishop to c6 being played here, because when you put the bishop on c6, it can go every which way here. You put it on g2, it can go to f1 or c6, many different possibilities. But we get this move bishop to a8 being played, and now after bishop to a8 being played in this position, sorry, why am I not getting more moves? We got to move king to f6. After king to f6, now Ding plays move rook f4. And this is a move that I simply do not understand whatsoever. It does not objectively change the evaluation of the game at this point, but it's a move where you're suddenly going away from the plan that you had been looking for from the start. Now, the move that should have been played here was a move like rook to a5, for example, trying to keep the king from entering. Now I suspect that what Ding was afraid of was to move bishop to c4 here, but nonetheless, after bishop d5, and let's just say bishop d3 here, you can simply play a move like bishop to c6, cutting off the king once again, and this position is still very, very balanced here. One line that I will show you guys, which I suspect Ding overlooked, is he probably thought that after bishop to e4 he could very easily lose the game. After takes king f1 and e3, let's just say rook a3 check, rook f3, king e2 takes, probably thought something like rook to a8, and now black can simply go rook to h3, walk the king up the board and win. But here you can simply go rook takes pawn, and after takes king g5, king f2, king h4, king g2. It's king and pawn versus a king, and the game will end peacefully once again. So we get king to f6 and rook f4 is played. This is a move that I really don't like. We have king to e5, and now Ding Liren blunders the game and the entire world championship title along with it when he plays this move rook to f2. Now this move loses on the spot, and this is a situation where this comes back to what I was saying earlier about this pawn a4 move. Ding is someone who has showed extreme nerves and shakiness in this match at times. He's also showed great resilience, but it feels to me that when he's been under serious pressure, he does make mistakes, perhaps a little bit uncharacteristic versus the Ding that we know from 2019, but he has made a lot of these mistakes. So he's getting low on time. He's putting himself in a situation with no upside, low on the clock, only nerves and pressure can come out of it, and he finally cracks here when he plays the move rook f2, and this move loses the game on the spot here after rook to f2, because we got takes. And here after king takes f2, we get the move bishop to d5, we get takes, king e3, king to e5, and here Ding Liren resigns the game against Gukesh, because if he were to play this move king to d3, for example, now we have the move f4, and if you were to take on f4, king takes f4, king to e2, and after king g3, king f1, king h2, followed by g3, g2, g1, you will push the pawn up the board, you will get a queen, and you will win the game. Now maybe what Ding thought was that he could go king to e2, and if black takes, you have king f1 and you draw the game. But here you simply go f3, king e3, and now it's a very important moment where you actually sack the pawn, because if you try to keep the two pawns alive here with king e3, king e1, and f2, king f1, king f3, the game ends in a stalemate. But you can play f2, white takes, and now you go king d4, and after king e2, king e4, king f2, king to d3, followed by king e3 here, black is going to win this game. Black will march the king all the way over, capture the pawn, and then either go to h3 or f3. Let's just say h3. You get king h1, g3, king g1, g2, king f2, king h2, and here black will win the game. So at this point, after king to e5, is played, wrong moment, sorry, in this moment after king to e5 here, Ding Liren resigns this game. Gukesh becomes the new world champion, I believe officially the 18th if we're using certain numerology, becomes the 18th world chess champion. A huge accomplishment for Gukesh here, great accomplishment for India. Obviously we can talk about Vichy and everything he's done. To see these juniors finally breaking through at the top levels and achieving the ultimate title is really something special to see. So from the Indian standpoint, it's amazing. As you guys know, I thought that Gukesh was clearly the favorite going into this match. He had some ups and downs throughout this match, but at the end of the day, he gets the job done. I think on some level, the fans are probably a little bit disappointed by the blunders that occurred from Ding in this game. We have not watched a press conference yet to see why exactly he played a4, but to me, there is one thing that is abundantly clear about this match, which is we can be very critical of a lot of the mistakes that Ding made throughout, but it is also very clear that Ding is not the same player he was even 5 years ago. There are certainly some issues he's dealing with. Who knows what he'll say or won't say, but it's very clear that there are issues that he's dealing with. And so I think when we look at it overall, it's clear that he's been struggling a lot. He did not play up to the level that he was capable of, at least in the past. But you know, it's definitely sad to see, and I think we have to applaud him for trying the best that he could, all things considered, because it definitely, you know, was very difficult for him. I think there's no doubt about that. So it is quite sad to see. I think, you know, a lot of people are going to talk about it and they're going to be like, well, you know, they're going to criticize and be like, look at these blunders, this a4 move, terrible move, this bishop a8 move, like it's not a world championship, it shouldn't happen. But I think at the end of the day, Ding gave it his best chance. Perhaps you could argue there are a lot of players who would not make those mistakes, but at the end of the day, he earned his right to be there and he did as much as he could. And it simply, maybe it was the pressure, whatever it was just too much for him. So at the end of the day, Gukesh becomes a world champion. It is great for India. It's fantastic. I'm sure there'll be a lot of recaps, a lot more that we'll be talking about related to this. Ultimately, when I look at the match overall, I will say that Gukesh was the better player. He's a deserving winner, and hopefully we'll see another very exciting match in a couple of years with Gukesh playing against either someone like myself, Magnus Fabiano, or maybe even the rising Indian juniors like Arjun Erigaisi going forward. So great performance from Gukesh. Indian fans going wild. Really good for the country. I'm sure we'll see a lot of tweets from Modi and everybody else about it. At any rate, Gukesh gets the big dub. He wins the world championship match, and that is going to do it for this recap. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It was actually a very slow kind of mellow day, and then it became very intense suddenly out of nowhere. But a big congrats to Gukesh, big congrats to the Indian chess community, and I hope you guys enjoyed the recap, and I'll see all of you guys very soon for some more very exciting content. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with some more recaps, press conferences, and everything else and analysis in the near future. But that's going to wrap it for the 2024 World Championship. See you guys soon. Bye.